Hi everyone, it's Nick. Welcome back to my channel. Okay, in this video today, we're gonna be talking about kitchen design mistakes. I did living room design mistakes before, and I'm gonna be doing this as part of a series, identifying different mistakes that I see over and over again in different rooms of your home. But today we are talking all about the kitchen, mistakes that I see over and over again. Now, I'll be honest, some of these are really gonna be sort of renovation focused or things that are kind of permanent changes, and that's just kind of the nature of the kitchen. But I do think that if you're renting or you're not planning a full renovation, there's still gonna be some information in this video that I think you still will find useful. Okay, but before I get to the rest of the video, I want to thank today's sponsor, which is Wayfair. That's right, Wayfair. So recently I did a video actually called Buy This, Not That from Wayfair. So you know I'm a big fan of Wayfair's products, but I'm not gonna lie, I think they only saw half that video, so shh. And the reason I recommend Wayfair's products is because there's something there for everybody. No matter what your design style, what your color scheme, whatever you like, there is something on Wayfair for you. And I bet you didn't realize that Wayfair actually has their own YouTube channel. And on there, they actually have a series called Swapping Carts, which is where you get usually a couple or two friends and they sort of shop for each other. And they sort of pick products from Wayfair's website. Some of them are hits, some of them are misses, I'm not gonna lie. So it's a little bit like it's couples therapy. Also, you know, you get to learn a little bit about design and you get to sort of feature a bunch of different products from Wayfair. I really like this green velvet couch, but then some of the other picks on there are honestly quite questionable, but that's okay because Wayfair understands that everybody is different, and no matter who you are or what you want in your home, there's always going to be diversity of opinion and people like different things, and that's okay because Wayfair offers so many different products that there is always going to be something for everybody. So thank you, Wayfair, for sponsoring this video, and if you want to check out Wayfair's YouTube channel, I'm going to link it all down below. Now let's get back to the rest of my video. Okay, first mistake that I see in the kitchen is what I'm going to call a color catastrophe. This is where you see people using really saturated colors and lots of different colors in the kitchen. It tends to make your home look really dated, and it tends to look dated really quickly. Now, I'm not talking about not using any color in your kitchen. You can use some color in the kitchen, but I would be very careful with color, especially in the kitchen. And the reason for that is because the kitchen has a lot of fixed elements. So by that, I mean things that are really sort of fixed to the kitchen. So you've got millwork, you've got kitchen countertops, you've got maybe a backsplash, you've got all your appliances. They could all be built in, I don't know. There's a lot going on in the kitchen, and it's not that easy to swap things out. So say in your living room or your bedroom, if you make a mistake or you sort of change your style, or you want to select a different color palette or whatever, usually it's not that difficult to swap some things out. But in the kitchen, it can be very, very difficult. So if you choose a really loud backsplash with a really crazy countertop, and maybe you choose some different colored uppers, those things, when you're using lots of really bright colors or you're using lots of different colors, they can start to look dated and you may get sick of them. Remember, with a kitchen renovation, we could be talking about having it for 10, 20, or even 30, 40, 50 years. I mean, I don't know how often you renovate. So you could be holding on to these items for a very long time. So be very careful when you're using lots and lots of color in your kitchen. Neutrals tend to last the test of time a little bit better than a lot of really heavily saturated colors. So you may want to stick to some neutrals and add a little bit of color from there. It's a safer choice. It's an interesting choice, while also not something that you're probably going to get really sick of. Okay, next mistake that I see is kitchen backsplashes, specifically really weird kitchen backsplashes, because there are a lot out there. Some people, I think, decide to go really funky and a little bit kooky and crazy and experimental with their backsplash, and I think that is a mistake because the backsplash essentially does a really great job of tying together the uppers and the kitchen countertop. So it's a really important visual element in your kitchen. And I think when you go really kooky and crazy, you're probably going to get tired of that. The backsplash is really difficult to remove, really difficult to change out. It is something, again, it's one of these fixed elements that you're going to be stuck with for a while. Some really good options. If you're going to go for tile, especially if you've got a different backsplash, then I would go for something like a subway tile if you want to go really classic. You could go for something in a nice herringbone, you could go for a chevron, you could go for stack tiles, and you can also get really a little bit creative with maybe the texture or the material that's used. You could go for a really interesting porcelain tile. You can go for some really sort of interesting, maybe subtle colors that can really work well for a backsplash. The other thing that is honestly my personal favorite thing to do, especially if you're doing a natural stone or a quartz countertop, is to just carry that countertop material right into the backsplash. I think it looks really contemporary. It sort of makes it easier to make sure everything is coordinated and cohesive because you're using the same material on the backsplash and the countertop. I always think it's a beautiful look. It's very elegant. I just think it always really works. Now, if you're going for laminate or butcher block on the countertops, probably doesn't make sense for it to go up on the backsplash. You don't really have that option. And that's where some of those really cool herringbone, chevron, subway tile, whatever pattern tiles work really well in a backsplash. But don't go too kooky crazy because this is something that you're gonna have to live with for a long time. You will get sick of the really funky tile, most likely. Okay, third mistake that I see in kitchens is not following the work triangle. Okay, so first let's explain what the work triangle is. So the work triangle is a sort of design principle. It's been around for many, many, many decades, but basically it is a triangle in your kitchen that connects the sink, the refrigerator, and the stovetop. So if you think about it, when you are cooking in your kitchen, those three areas of the home really make sense to be able to bounce in between. Now, some contemporary designs, I'm a big lover of contemporary design, I'm gonna be honest, but I do notice a lot of these contemporary kitchens now are throwing away the work triangle and saying, we don't need them anymore. I think that's a mistake. I think it is still a very sound design principle that makes sense for the function of most people's kitchen. Because when you are cooking, you are going to be going back and forth between these three pieces over and over again, and ergonomically, it just makes sense for really great flow in your kitchen. What I don't love to see, and again, you see this a lot in these new modern sort of contemporary kitchens often, where you've got the double island, which y'all know I hate the double island because it looks like a science class. But anyway, you're seeing these double islands, or you're seeing where you've got the refrigerator on one side, a big chunky island in the middle, and then you got the stove top over here. So now every time you're cooking and you gotta get out some garlic or you gotta get out some ginger or whatever, you're gonna have to walk around that island in order to be able to get into your kitchen. It just doesn't make sense. So I think throwing away the work triangle or not adhering to it is a mistake. You really wanna build your kitchen with function in mind and really consider how you cook and how you are going to use your kitchen. And I bet you, most likely, you're gonna want those three elements fairly close to each other and really convenient to access while you are cooking. So I would say sticking to the work triangle is a good idea. Okay, my fourth kitchen design mistake is not extending your cabinetry right to the ceiling. This might be personal preference, but I personally believe that when you have a really cropped cabinet, I'm talking about where your kitchen cabinets are not extended right to the ceiling. This is, by the way, assuming that your kitchen has standard ceiling heights, by the way. If you've got a double height, I'm not saying extend right to the ceiling, that's different. But if you've got a standard ceiling height, which most people do, I would say it is a mistake to crop your cabinets. I know it's usually a little bit more expensive, or it's a lot more expensive to extend your kitchen cabinets, depending on your quotes, to get your kitchen cabinets extended right to your ceiling. But I just think if you lower them, it artificially lowers your ceilings. It makes the place look more drawn in. It makes it look smaller because it artificially lowers your ceiling. You want to maximize the ceiling height that you have, and it's really just a beautiful, elegant look, just really modern to have it extend right to the ceiling. I think when you are planning your budget in your kitchen, I would advise that that is something I would, if I were you, personally really consider spending that extra money on, because it just makes for a really beautiful, elegant look to have your cabinetry go all the way up to the ceiling. It just makes everything look taller, it makes it look more expansive, and it really maximizes the height of the kitchen. Okay, the next mistake I want to talk about is boring lighting, or just like not functional lighting in the kitchen. So lighting in the kitchen is really important because it's important to have some ambient lighting and also some task lighting in there. Task lighting because there's a lot of tasks that you're going to be accomplishing, right? You want to make sure that you have enough lighting to be able to see what you're doing in the kitchen, to be able to cook properly. If you have something over the stove, that you're able to do that. But it's also really important to have some nice ambient lighting in the kitchen, because I just think sometimes when people have just kind of two pot lights in the kitchen, it's usually not enough to create a really interesting space and also to give you the lighting that you need to be able to accomplish the tasks in the kitchen. So I'm a big fan as well of like recessed lighting strips. I love them when they're at the bottom of the cabinetry. I always think that's really beautiful, just to provide a really sort of subtle glow near your feet. Awesome. I also love when you've got the lighting strips under the uppers so that you're able to kind of create some sort of soft ambient lighting underneath the kitchen countertops. These things go a long way. They're really small, they're really subtle, but they make a huge difference. But also, let's talk about when it comes to boring lighting is stop choosing boring lighting fixtures. Like, we've all seen that lantern lighting a million times. We've all seen the same boring lighting fixtures over and over and over again, especially looking at those pendants that are over top of your peninsula or over top top of your island. These tend to work in waves of trends over and over again, where you just see the same stuff over and over. And I just think there's such an opportunity there to mix it up. Sometimes I think it feels like there's not as much room for creativity in the kitchen, so the pendants become a really great way to sort of show a little bit of personality and sort of tie in your kitchen into the rest of the space, especially if you have an open concept, so that, you know, that peninsula or that island is really going to be interacting with the dining room or the living room that's next door. Go to a lighting design store, like go to a really interesting lighting design store that's doing some really, really cool things. And then, you know, the thing is with lighting, it's not that hard to find a lot of dupes. So if you do find some interesting lighting on there, it's not that hard to be able to find on Pinterest or find different retailers that are doing something similar. So that's just an idea, I think, that you can get inspired by some of your lighting, especially in the kitchen, because I just see the same stuff over and over. So it is such a great opportunity to change it up and try something a little bit more interesting and show a little bit more personality. Okay, next mistake that I see is too much open shelving. Let's talk about open shelving because it is the trend that will not die. So a little bit of open shelving can be great. It's an opportunity to, you know, present some really beautiful ceramics or some things that you've collected and you want to show them off, and that's really great. And oftentimes, you know, it works out for a lot of people to add a little bit of open shelving because they can just go and grab some really gorgeous items and it's kind of nice to display some things. Sure, fine. But a mistake is doing too much of it because it is a dust collector, and there is a really good reason why most of the cabinetry that we should have in our kitchen should be closed, because most of our stuff that we actually use on a daily basis in the kitchen is not things that we necessarily really want to display. No one needs to see the boring IKEA dishes that you have and I have. I mean, they're great, they're functional, they work. I love the 365 series, but let's be honest, they're not exactly some beautiful handcrafted ceramics that we want to show off to all of our best friends that come over, right? Like, we don't, no, just put those back in the cabinetry, put your Tupperware back in the cabinets. We need that space. There's a reason why those doors are there. So a little bit of cabinetry, a little bit of open shelving is really great, but don't do too much of it, because once you do too much, you are going to regret it. Honestly, I think a couple of years from now, we're going to look at all these huge walls of open shelving and just shake our heads and go, what are we thinking? What were we thinking? I mean, I'm saying that now, so I can imagine we're all going to be saying that in a couple of years, right? Okay, next mistake that I see over and over again is not taking into account like cabinets and appliance clearance issues when it comes to sort of opening all these different drawers and whatever. This is the worst of the mistakes that I see over and over. I didn't actually make this mistake, so a lot of the kitchen was renovated when I moved into this place, but I can't even tell you how much it drives me nuts that when you open that cutlery rack on the top of the dishwasher, you cannot open the cutlery drawer, which is where all the cutlery goes in. So what do you think happens? So you open that up because you want to put away all your cutlery, your clean cutlery from the dishwasher, and oh yeah, you can't put it in the drawer that it needs to go in, 6 inches away. It drives me nuts. You want to take into account all of these things because I can tell you they will drive you nuts. So it might take you hours and hours and hours now in trying to figure out to make sure that you have all the clearances just so that there's nothing that's going to bump into each other, or at least taking into account how you use the cabinet so that you know that when one cabinet is used, it's not going to bump into another cabinet that's probably going to be used at the same time. So just think of how frustrating it's going to be over the next couple of decades when you can't use all these pieces together in the way that you want to. Okay, next kitchen design mistake that I see is not considering your electrical and plumbing requirements for the kitchen. Really talk to your plumber or your electrician or your general contractor and just really understand your electrical and plumbing needs for your kitchen and make sure you have everything that you need. Really plan things like if you have an open concept kitchen and maybe you've got some seating on the other side of the kitchen island and you sort of envision that's where your kids are going to be doing their homework or whatever, maybe consider putting an electrical outlet there, right? Do you consider that your island is going to be really functional and you're going to want to put a blender, you're going to want to put, different appliances, and that's where you plan on using them? Make sure that you have the proper electrical requirements, because again, it's these small things that if you're wondering where you're going to be able to put some of your appliances and you realize you don't have the electrical requirements to do them, it's going to be frustrating in the years and decades to come. Okay, so next design mistake that I see in the kitchen is being too boring. And now I know I said earlier in this video, things like color catastrophes are common where people choose really outlandish, crazy, super funky backsplashes and stuff, and that is all true. So what do I consider to be a really boring kitchen? I would say white millwork with white quartz countertops, a subway tile backsplash, and a chrome lantern fixture over top of the island or the peninsula. To me, that's a bit boring. I'm not gonna lie. Is there some ways that you can mix that up? Yes, you can still play it relatively safe, choose some, really neutral colors. You can still choose some classic pieces, but maybe something that's a little bit more interesting. I mentioned earlier, swap out that subway, maybe try something like a herringbone. Maybe go for some quartz that's got a little bit of movement to it, right? Something that's got a little bit more interesting, or go for a natural stone. So if you're considering granite or you're considering quartzite or something that you think you can take care of on your countertops, I would consider those as just a really beautiful way of sort of mixing up your kitchen. Or if you do love a white kitchen and you're looking at white cabinetry, maybe where you do a different two-tone cabinetry where your lower cabinets are maybe a little bit of a different color, and you can choose that's maybe going to work cohesively with the rest of your space, but it's not that typical white on white on white on white on white kitchen that we've seen 1,000 times. So there's some like subtle ways I think that you can take those different elements that I just described and just kind of do a little bit of a different twist on them. I don't think it's something that you're going to be sick of. I don't think it's something that's, going to look dated before you started. It's just something that's going to look really clean and elegant, a little bit more interesting with a little bit more personality than your typical kitchen that we've seen 1,000 times. But I think it's something that you would be happy with for years or decades to come. Okay, next kitchen design mistake that I see over and over again is not taking care of your natural stone. As I just previously mentioned, natural stone is beautiful. There's always going to be a really beautiful, kind of gorgeous quality to having a natural stone. There is just a certain nature does it best, right? There is just usually some really interesting movement and some colors that are happening that are just really hard to replicate in a manufactured product. But it is a mistake not to take care of that natural product. They're really great sealers that you can do. You can have them professionally sealed. You can also have household sealers that you can also use as kind of like regular maintenance on your natural stone. There's lots of different products that are out there that are coming out that do a really great job of protecting natural stone. You can honestly say that you're not going to take care of natural stone, that you just don't think that you're going to put up with the maintenance of it. Just always know that you're potentially, especially if you go for a really soft material, you're always a glass of red wine spill away from ruining what could be thousands or tens of thousands of dollars worth of beautiful countertops. So really, really take care of it. And if you can't take care of it, consider something like a quartz product, because quartz is still beautiful. It's not going to always have the same character as you're going to get in a natural stone, but the maintenance is essentially zero. And that is a lot easier, I think, for people to handle. But if you are going to get a natural stone and you really want to invest in that beauty, just make sure that you really take care of it. Okay, next up on my kitchen design mistakes is not considering paneled or sort of integrated options in your kitchen. So I'll be honest with you, oftentimes when you're talking about paneled appliances, they are going to be more expensive, okay? So what I mean by that is, say your fridge or your refrigerator, you can get those paneled. So you can actually have the cabinetry that you select for all your kitchen cabinets, and you can actually just integrate them inside. This is a beautiful look. I think it is something that if you can do it, if you can afford it, I think it's worth considering. I think sometimes people, when they do a kitchen renovation, they sometimes aren't happy with the end result because it kind of looks like there's lots of different appliances all over the place, and they're not getting that beautiful sort of elegant architectural digest look. And I think one of the pieces that may have been missing in their plan is spending a little bit more money, or at least not even considering the idea of integrating or paneling their appliances. The other thing to consider, which is not actually all that expensive, is really also integrating solutions in your kitchen that you're going to need. You're going to need a compost bin, a recycling bin, garbage bin, right? These sorts of things, spaces to hold your pots and pans. These are things now that you can integrate inside your kitchen cabinetry, and it creates a lot better flow in your kitchen, and it kind of eliminates a lot of the clutter that you so often see in kitchens. And that I find is a much better solution than having all these garbage bins and compost bins and stuff sort of hanging around loosely in your kitchen. It just makes it look a lot more uncluttered, and it's just much more of an elegant solution. Okay, that's it for me for today, you guys. I'm going to link to the playlist for my design mistake series. The first one is the living room, but there are going to be more videos to come, and I will see you all in the next video. Thanks, bye.